Welcome back to the Quantum Soul podcast, everyone. I am so excited to be here because we have our first ever podcast interview guest for the podcast. And I personally have been expanding myself into new realms of my own external, tangible way that I'm serving people, including this podcast, and in my own internal realms of spiritual exploration. And that's why this episode feels so special to me because I have been on quite a uh interesting journey of exploration, to say the least. I could have never imagined I'd be here. Several years ago, I had my big spiritual awakening in 2020, and that's when it felt like my realm, my perception of reality just totally shifted and expanded in ways, my soul and my inner child was just so excited to explore. And what's so interesting that's just coming to my mind right now is that I recently rewatched the Disney movie. I think it was called Atlantis,
Mhm.
after not watching it since I was like 5 years old. And it just feels so perfect to recognize that this Atlantis energy is coming back to the earth to be remembered. It's not that it ever necessarily left, but we are all beginning to remember it more so. So, before I try to explain this myself anymore, I want to introduce you all to Priscilla Campos, who is a beautiful guide and priestess who I've been really enjoying learning from all the content that she puts out. So, welcome to the podcast, Priscilla. I'm so grateful to
Yeah.
have you here.
Thank you and blessings to everyone. I feel like we're going to go on a beautiful journey of Atlantean education today. And that's really what Atlantis is about. It's about knowledge, love, unity. I'm sure we'll get very deep into it, but something I would just love to preface is that Atlantis doesn't belong to Earth. Atlantis is a greater frequency that exists within our universe. And whenever a civilization is ready to come into unity and harmony and deep love and sacred knowledge once again, that's when the Atlantean current comes in. And as you mentioned, it is coming back again. So, it fell or got wiped out mostly about 12,000 years ago is what most people will date it at. But we're coming back to a place where we've had enough of the separation and the war and the division, and people are aching for something true and real. And one of those things is coming back to source or to creator, no matter what your religious upbringing or spiritual upbringing has been. It all
Mhm.
comes back to source. And that's really the Atlantean current. It's a golden ray. I talk about it a lot. I teach about it a lot. For some people new on their journey, when you're hearing these words like something like a ray, you're like, what could that mean? Or a flame? But a ray is just really a recognition of a frequency. And so Atlantis works with a golden ray and a blue ray, most definitely. Also an emerald green ray that's healing. But it's a way that we can approach the level that we're at and bring in a deeper frequency of love, of harmony, of understanding, of wisdom. And so sometimes you'll hear people talk about the 12 rays. I'm sure there's more than 12 rays, there's more the colors, but there is something significant about the journey. So no matter where anyone starts their spiritual awakening, and I feel like so many people I know woke up in 2020, between 2020 and 2022. So we can actually see that time period as quite a gift as well, because it really did rock the world into awakening, and it keeps unfolding as time goes on. Your spiritual awakening is something really special. It's something beautiful. It's something that some people run away from and do the exact opposite of, so that they don't have to come into terms of their reality shifting the way that it does. But if you have the courage and the curiosity, you open a whole entire world. And I will say, you mentioned the movie Atlantis. I never watched it. I never watched anything Atlantean growing up. I was never fascinated. And now my whole world, my work, everything I do revolves around it. So it's really interesting. There was breadcrumbs, but you just never know where you're going to be. So, if you feel, if someone that's listening feels stuck right now, or you feel lost, you're like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get to that point where this other person is. Your path is your own. It's guided by your soul, and your soul is never wrong. If you just learn to listen to it and follow the breadcrumbs, you're going to be somewhere that you've always been meant to be. So it's a beautiful journey, but it takes time. And I watched the Atlantis Disney movie probably, I don't know, probably around 2018, 2019. And I was like, no. I'm like, why are they portraying Atlantis like this? I'm like, no, no, no. And I find that a lot in popular culture. Because the image of Atlantis that is shown is the negative one in the fall, right? If you take any civilization in their fall, you're not going to get the peace and the love and the joy that existed there. You're going to see the corruption. But that kind of is where the media paints Atlantis, and maybe we'll get into it. We'll see why they do that. Um,
Mhm.
but I think it's a good opening, I think, right? I think we laid some good groundwork there.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that you mentioned the breadcrumbs piece because that's a term that I've resonated with so much on my journey. And when I first started this podcast, it was a spur of the moment, and I just wanted to share about my own journey with starting as a mechanical engineer, which is
Mm.
almost like the complete opposite of what I'm doing now, and recognizing that that wasn't aligned with my soul, I would die doing that. And just starting to follow the breadcrumbs and not having any idea what the thing was. And I still don't. Like everyone's searching for the thing that's going to be the thing forever. And I don't think that that's untrue or impossible, but it's so beautiful when you can just trust that as long as you keep following those breadcrumbs, you will be led to the most exciting life. And that's kind of where I'm at now with saying yes to the priestess path, I would say, and allowing that yes to guide me to my next steps and no longer be afraid to show up as my uh, most expressed self, which you embody so beautifully. So I would love to hear. Well, I have two questions. The first one is to someone who is beginning to open up to spirituality. Maybe they're like, I don't know if they'd be like me, that was like total popped off in 2020 and like aliens and Atlantis and da da da.
Yeah.
Or if it's just like beginning to recognize that your thoughts control your reality or you have shadow work to do. What is one piece of advice that you would give somebody who's getting started in diving into this work?
I would say trust yourself that you're not making it up, because your ego is, it's very clever. It's very rooted within you. You've grown up with your ego. It knows you very well. And when you start learning about the things that you were taught were myth or false or illusion, and you start learning that those things actually are real and have real history, it starts to peel back the layers. And I would say the thing I've said about myself, my spiritual awakening, and a lot of my clients is that there gets to be this notion that there's something other. And
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of times it comes through trauma for people. It came through three significant deaths in my family that made me really question, not that I was a devout Catholic, but I was raised Catholic. And it made me question what those people were actually teaching me, because it was very apparent to me once I allowed myself that permission to connect with these people that were passing, like my grandfather. No, there's more. There's more than what they say. And once you start, you say everything popped off. For me, it was like layer after layer after layer after layer. My beloved mother-in-law was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. As she was
Mm,
going through chemotherapy, the diet they prescribed her was so unhealthy that I had the thought, what are they doing? Are they trying to kill her?
mm,
And then I said, oh, they're trying to kill her. Oh, this is not made to help her beat this or be healthy. They just want to make money off of her on the medication.
mm,
Once I understood that, I looked into like the food industry and then the agriculture industry and then the banking and then the federal government, and it just like hit, and the water we're drinking, and just like on and on and on and on. And then eventually, of course, I was led to more of what I would call the magical part of spiritual awakening, which is like, Yes, everybody, unicorns are real. Do they
Mm,
exist in the third dimension anymore? No. Why? Because we're a violent species. Yes, dragons are real. Yes, Atlantis and Lemuria is real. Yes, different realms outside of Earth exist. And when you
mm,
have this lens and then you start to see the way that media portrays it and the way we're supposed to be afraid, and if you look at actually a lot of different types of religions, what do they tell you? Yoga, meditation, crystals, Reiki, these things are all evil. Why? Because they empower you to know the truth. So
mhm.
when you're starting your spiritual awakening, it's really easy to want to slip back into the comfortable. And the comfortable is the matrix. And it's like, do your 9 to 5 job, right? Get paid, make dinner, watch TV, go to bed, whatever that is, whatever way that is for everybody. But there's a certain signature to it. And when you dare to look outside of it, it makes people uncomfortable, but it also begins to free you. So in 2020, my awakening at that time was to pull my kids from the school system. I said,
Wow.
there's no way that anybody is going to mask my children. There is no way I'm allowing that. And that
Mhm.
decision probably changed the course of our life because it allowed us to create a life that is devoted to them and what their gifts and needs are, which is a very Atlantean way to live. And once you start breaking through that, then you start seeing what the other illusions are. But the self-doubt is going to come in. The people that want to keep you at that vibration that they're at, they're going to try really hard. They're going to say, in my case, why would you ever do that? Your kids are not going to get anywhere in life. They're not going to go to university. They're not going to be able to get a job. No one's going to marry them because they're not smart. Like it was all this negativity. And now that we're 6 years into it, more people are asking me about the homeschooling co-op that we're a part of. How do you
Wow.
do that? What's this? Like, and my children are kind and open and in tune with their gifts and um, very creative, right? They're beings that think outside of the box. And now people are starting, the same people that were kind of shunning me are starting to see it because you kind of need that. You need one person to send a light out for someone else to see it. So, again, those of you that are starting, you might be scared, you might be unsure, but whatever your path is, it's meant to be. And your soul has a particular blueprint and a particular mission that nobody else can do. It's really, to me, that's a very, very basic truth. And
Mhm.
so whatever way you express your truth, maybe it's for you, you went out of mechanical engineering and you shifted, that shift provides something incredible for someone else. And someone might enter the mechanical engineering realm and it might be perfect for them and it might be their gift and they might be able to make something, a new discovery, a new way of doing something that opens it up. But we have to really like learn to listen to our soul because as we're talking about the breadcrumbs, once you look back, you're like, oh, it was showing me all along. I was just too young, naive, distracted, whatever, to really tune in. It's my favorite part about the spiritual path and listening to other people's stories. You'll hear there's these little droplets in their childhood, into being a teenager, into being a young adult. And when you loop them together, you will realize that you are never alone. You've always been supported. You've always had guides that have shown you, that have kept you safe, kept you loved, and have shown you the next breadcrumb. And if you approach it with joy instead of worry, like, when's it going to happen for me? How's it going to
Mhm.
happen? I don't, like you're saying, I don't know what the thing is.
Mhm.
You won't miss it. There's no way you'll miss it because as long as you're open and curious, good things are going to come your way.
Yeah. Wow, so many powerful points you just made. I know I think in the collective right now with the whole school system, like who knows where that whole thing will
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
soon because it really, at least from what the way that I'm perceiving it, is it's become very clear how we've been trained
Yes.
into a certain way of thinking the world works or thinking what's important, and we've been trained out of following our gifts and the things that are more creative and not so robotic or like being a part of a factory of some sort. And I've whenever I tune into the energies of Atlantis or learn about it, and what I've been practicing and feeling so called to in my life is really recognizing that we all came into this world with certain gifts
Mhm,
and things that feel easeful and joyful for us.
mhm,
We're not taught always to nurture those in the traditional schooling aspect, but what is clear is when we're in that energy, we're vibrating at a certain frequency. And we have a soul signature of like essence that we get to give to the world when we're in that energy, and then we're sharing that gift however that looks. So can you speak to, I guess, number one, what how do I want to start this question? What's your experience of, I guess, um, the Atlantean way of life,
mm.
and how can we start living from that? And maybe it would be a good idea to preface again anything else that a listener might need to understand about what Atlantis is if it's a brand new concept for them.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Number one, what we're going to learn in popular culture about Atlantis is that it's a city or an island. The truth of Atlantis is it's a very ancient civilization on Earth that spans at least 250,000 years, but I would say up to 3.5 million years. So the Atlantis that sunk 12,000 years ago is the last version of Atlantis in that form. But it is far more than an island. People will happily message me, Priscilla, they found Atlantis. It's in the Antarctic. They found it. It's in the Sahara Desert. We should understand that Atlantis, just like our modern day cities, I think between, if you look at American and Canadian cities, they're very similar in how they're set up. They have the downtown, they have the skyscrapers, they come out, there's all the businesses, and then eventually there's like all the suburbs. Atlantis has a blueprint like that, although its blueprint is very circular. So when you see these things mentioned in the Sahara Desert or in Antarctica, or actually I think it's in Mississippi in the USA, there's
Okay.
different remnants of it because it's the blueprint of the city, and so it's made in like fashion. So number one, it is everywhere. Anything around the Atlantic Ocean, of course, that's where it gets its name from, is going to be heavily influenced by Atlantis. So, in particular, in North America, everything from the East Coast into the central parts is going to have that Atlantean influence. The Lemurian influence is the Pacific Ocean. So, in North America, anything on the West Coast going in is going to be very Lemurian.
Mhm.
But for Atlantis, we have the east coast of North America. We have the top of South America and Africa. We have this leeway that goes into the Mediterranean Sea that then affects all of the countries around the Mediterranean Sea. And you have the western coast of Europe. So this is where are going to be our strongest Atlantean ties. And you're going to see that influence. I teach that most of our mythology is based on real people from Atlantis. When you think of Norse mythology, Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Celtic, almost all of that you will find has root in Atlantis. So is Atlantis real? Absolutely. Is it as fantastical as people believe it to be? I think so. I think it's a different timeline. It's a different way of living. When we're asking what's the core principle of Atlantis, it's that we are one. We are we are devoted to the law of one. We are devoted to the one and all creator. You can recognize that creator in different forms, maybe in a god or goddess form, in a high priestess or magi type of form. You might see it reflected, but we only believe in the one and all creator. And a lot of times people talk about the great central sun. You can just
Mhm.
think of the one and all creator as the central intelligence of the entire universe, a
Mhm.
warming, loving intelligence. You can see them as a great mother or a great father. You can think of it as a Sophia or a god. But that's what the Atlanteans adhere to. Now, the nice part about Atlanteans is that they're very, I don't know if flamboyant is the right word. I like to say opulent. Okay,
Mhm.
so if we think of an Atlantean city in, let's go 35,000 to 50,000 years ago, in Atlantis's heyday on Earth, you're going to see the most awe-striking, beautiful, inspiring sculptures, buildings, statues, artwork, gardens, because everything is set up in glory to Creator. So it's not just like Atlanteans are wealthy and love their jewels as I love my jewels. There's a purpose behind all of it. And part of it is to inspire and to say, this is what humanity is capable of. So we're not gonna be content to be in thatched little huts and just to have our community gatherings. Atlanteans want the best of the best of the best of the best. Now,
Mm.
eventually, if you don't keep that in check, if you don't keep your connection to source in check, you will lose yourself and you will come to think that you are the greatest, you are the
Mhm.
best, and you don't need these things. And that's eventually what happened to the Atlanteans. But if we come back into the golden era and say we're just talking about an Atlantean education isn't built in a square box in a school with a chalkboard or whiteboard saying memorize this, memorize that. An Atlantean education is a baby being born in the most beautiful type of ceremony where the Atlantean women are all supporting that woman that's giving birth. It is a series of incredible events where the woman goes in sustained orgasm, basically, instead of the pain that women feel now. It's like a ceremony of joy because you are birthing the light of God through you. And when that baby comes in, they are welcomed, they are told they are loved, they are sung to. There's just community instantly. Now, within, I would say, a month to 3 months of that baby being born, their Akashic records are going to be read. If you're unsure what the Akashic records are, every soul keeps a record of every single lifetime interaction, moment, job, experience, relationship that you have ever encountered in any realm, in any timeline. So when your Akashic record is read as a baby, along with your astrological chart, those those people that love you and care for you can then map out, oh, this is what their soul's archetype is. This is the blueprint. This is what who they are and what they like to do. And so instead of shoving you into a school, with one teacher, you apprentice into this craftsmanship with elders, with high priestesses, with it goes on and on and on. So if you are born to be an artist, then at 3 and 5 your play is going to be sculpted around that, right? If you're born to be a musician, you're going to be in music halls your whole life. You're going to be invited to play, to sing at whatever age you are, and it's always going to be encouraged. And so an Atlantean education, Atlantean lifetimes are very long, right? Even in the Bible, people 2000 years ago were living 400 to 800 years old. They were not dying at 65 from heart attacks the way that happens now. So
Mhm.
Atlantean lifetimes in a golden era are far beyond what we think. If you think, wow, 1,000 would be so old, 1,000 in a golden Atlantis is a young chick. It's like you're just turned 16. So the amount of time that you have to devote to your craft, to your gifts, is incredible. And that's why Atlanteans become masters of knowledge, masters of art, masters of crystals, masters of healing, because they're not just working on it for 8 years in university and then being thrown to the wolves in their career. They are being supported every level of the way. And that's the thing about Atlantis. It is built on community. It's not a system that runs on money. It's a system of exchange, it's a system of fairness. Plato writes that there's 10 colonies or 10 islands of Atlantis, and they're all cared for by kings and queens, not in the way that we would think about medieval kings and queens, not in ways like, give me your wealth, I'm going to tax you, in a way that's like, I'm here to support and protect you. How can we work together to keep creating this, basically, this utopia? So it is as good as we can imagine. It is why so many of us feel a discordance with how we live now when you're struggling for money or for abundance or for true community. Because if you've had lifetime, I believe everybody on earth has had a lifetime, at least one lifetime in Atlantis and one lifetime in Lemuria. I absolutely believe that, but most likely you've had hundreds, if not thousands. And so when your soul craves this, if you hear the term Atlantis and there is something that's like, what? And your soul starts to ache, you're craving what was and what will be again. It might take us 100, 300 years to get there. It might take us 25 years to get there. We're really expanding very rapidly now, but it's a place that we all want to live in. It's a place we long for. And it is as beautiful as you can think. Whatever you can think of people that love mermaids, love dolphins, yes, you're an Atlantean. I love unicorns and Pegasus. Yes, you live in Atlantis. I'm obsessed with dragons. Yes, because you're an Atlantean. Um,
Mhm.
I make fun of myself all the time and I have no problem with it. I say like that, for those of you that are familiar with that, my big fat Greek wedding. And there's the dad that's like, you give me one word and I'll show you how that word is comes from Greece. I'm like, you tell me one thing and I'll trace it back to how that is Atlantean. Like, no, you can't. I'm like, yes, because our modern civilization is built on Lemuria and Atlantis, but the controllers of our world don't want us to know that. And so they try to delete it and make it myth. But it is real and your soul knows it.
Mm. Ah, goosebumps. Thank you so much. I feel like, especially as a first podcast interview, this is so filled with so much information that, maybe certain listeners are like, what the heck are they talking about? Maybe certain listeners have already been in this realm. Maybe you're somewhere in between. And what I will say is, if it excites you at all to learn about it, for me, it's just been a consistent, expanding journey of remembering through my own cells what these frequencies felt like, what certain lifetimes looked like, and whether you take on the lens of past lives or not, it's more about how does it make you feel. So I'll just invite everybody to like notice how everything that's being shared is making them feel. I think if something makes you feel excited, we need more of that on the earth. So like let's go with it, right? Um,
Great.
and I really loved what you said about the the cultivation of the gifts. Like I've been feeling a little bit of heartbreak, I'll say, in my own self as I've dove deeper into the priestess work that I've been doing.
Mhm.
Because, and I think that's with anything in life, right? When we haven't had something for so long, from Taiha, this lifetime's perspective, and we finally get it, we have to experience the grief of not having been experiencing that at this time. But
Right.
what it really does feel like is that level of dedication and devotion to craft that, even in the older times we had there were more like apprenticeships and like that kind of thing. That I just am like interested in what maybe it is the school system that has trained us out of um, that practice. But it's also so exciting anytime I tap into that feeling of maybe all of the lifetimes that I've experienced of that cultivation starting to be remembered through me, which I
Yes.
personally believe like our souls are here to continue the journey from the past lives. So it's like a choice to turn towards your own soul and your own gifts that maybe you've forgotten, um, that only if you choose to turn towards again will become remembered, which a lot of people, it might not be their, uh, they might not choose that. And
Right.
it's like a surrendering to what each soul is choosing for themselves this lifetime. But I do hope and know that we're both standing for people choosing the life that lights them up the most, where they can cultivate their soul's gifts and give that. Um, so, with that, I'd be curious to know, how do you know all of this? What
Mm.
happened? Where did you gain this knowledge? And yeah, just to give the listeners a little bit of insight into where this information has come from.
Yeah. Thank you. And I love the way that you just explained too. Like it's everyone's going to be different. A big lesson I learned during COVID because I was desperately trying to save my big family from doing things that I thought weren't going to be healthy for them. And I realized that everyone's path is perfect and not everyone's path in this lifetime is destined to wake up. And that's
Mhm.
okay. Whatever experience that they're choosing to have, it's perfect for them. And so once we can kind of separate that, then we don't have to experience guilt about trying to get everyone to come with us. Like, come on, like it's so much better over here outside of the matrix. It's so much more beautiful and light and it's
Yeah.
okay. Everyone is having their own experience, and whenever they're supposed to wake up or have that point, that big moment, they will. And then they get to choose what they do with it. One of the way I would say I started is I was a dance teacher and a studio owner for 20 years, and I absolutely loved it, or at least I thought I loved it. And I had my first Reiki session a year after my second daughter was born, after I had lost another daughter in between, and when my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. So it was all happening very rapidly, loss, grief, questioning. In my first Reiki session, the Reiki master practitioner that was working on me said, I'm really confused because one side of you is like work. It's like 1,000 emails, 1,000 thoughts, 1,000 dances, create this, do this. Like it was just like, it's like nonstop, Priscilla. I'm like, that's the part that I feel like I'm going to crack, right? Like I was under so much pressure, not enjoying the time with my kids because it was very limited. I was just feeling, I remember saying like, I don't know how people go crazy, but I think I'm close. I actually thought my skull was going to crack open. And then she's like, the other side of you, she's like, it's so fascinating. I'm like, what is it? She's like, it's pure light. I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, you're supposed to be a healer.
Mm.
What? That's weird. I don't think so. I've never I've never had that indication. No, I'm a dancer. I'm a dance teacher. But it sparked something within me. It made me curious. She had talked about a lifetime in Egypt. I should preface by saying, even though I was raised Catholic, I actually seriously believed I was from Egypt and Greece, and I said it a lot. Right around age 8, probably to age 11, I talked a lot about it. I didn't have memories of it. I just knew I was from there, and I also knew that I had a past life injury having to do with my neck and the guillotine. It was it was something that was very visceral for me. So I've had this indication. I knew nothing about Atlantis, and this is why I want to say your life can change on a dime. Okay, so 2013 begins my awakening. 2014, I start learning about Reiki healing. I get my level 1, I eventually get my level 2. 2016, I traveled to England. So, I'm 3 years into my path. I'm open to angels. I'm learning about fairies. I'm starting to understand that a lot of people are very ancient on this planet and have created things to help us remember, like Stonehenge, that there is much more to this world than we see. And I get what we now would call a download. So if you never heard of a download is like an idea that comes in that's not yours. It's a very clear idea, a very clear direction. It's like crystal clear. Like sometimes it can almost feel like a voice of God, or it can feel like a mass rush of information. So literally a download. My download was that I was going to be going to Greece within the next year. And when I went to Greece, I would understand why I loved Greece and Egypt so much. Like,
Mm.
okay, well, let's see how that fits in my dance schedule. Fast forward to a year later, I am standing, I am standing in Greece. Because my guides had no motion to me, like, Priscilla, you have to start studying Atlantis. And I said, I don't care about Atlantis. There's no reason I need to study Atlantis. They're like, if you just go buy some books, start reading, and then report back to us. The first
Mm.
book I bought was very boring, not anything worth mentioning. The
Mm.
second, third, and fourth book that I read, oh my God, this is why I like Greece and Egypt so much. Oh my
Wow.
gosh. And so I went on a tour in Greece. I went alone, but of course I was with other people. It wasn't a spiritual tour. For me personally, it ended up being a pilgrimage. But what we did is we went to, I think, I want to say 8 to 10 ancient sites in Greece. At every time I went to one of these temples, a tree, a rock, a temple would literally be like, Priscilla, Priscilla, you're back. Come sit. I haven't seen you in 800 years. What are you doing? And I'm like, what is going on here? And I had more spiritual awakenings at every point. To me, I was channeling messages, if that's a word we want to use, from the Greek gods and goddesses. I was picking up healing, ways of healing. I was picking up new modalities. I was getting activations. It was an incredible trip for me. That's 2017. I sell my studio because I understand that I'm actually am supposed to be a healer. And 2018 is my aha moment. Okay. So the moment that some people are looking for, the people, when people are looking for love, I've coached a lot of people on this. When is he or she going to come? How will I know it? And then once they find it, they're like, oh, you know
Mm-hmm.
when you know. Okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
the simplest thing to do. You can question all you want, but the truth is, your soul will tell you when this person's situation experience is meant for you. So I traveled to Texas, to Houston, Texas in 2018 in the spring. I'm studying Atlantean healing. The first hour I am in that class, this is what I'm here to do. And I put my hand up. I'm like, how long until I can learn this so I can teach it to others? And they're like, no, Priscilla, there's only 5 teachers around the world of this particular modality. They're not initiating any other healers, so we can't give you an answer. And I'm like, hmm. In my head, I'm like, but I'm supposed to teach about Atlantis. I'm supposed to be an Atlantean healer. And that moment was so clear for me that it gave me the courage to then open up and expand more. So maybe 2018, I was just like studying a lot of healing modalities and I was practicing them. I had a personal practice by that time in in-person clients. 2019 would be my official coming out with my Atlantis. This, for those of you maybe that can see, I'm wearing a jewel on my third eye. His name is Atlan. He's an Atlantean spinel. He found his way into my care on November 11th of 2019. So on 11/11, that is like, it is
Mm-hmm.
made. And he happened to come to me the first day I was publicly teaching about Atlantis in a space, Atlantis and Lemuria. And I will
Mm-hmm.
say that union with him, following that, going into 2020, going into COVID years, that was the marriage that I needed. And it just brought everything out. So the knowledge I have from Atlantis at the base level comes from books. What I love to explore is that male authors often write on Atlantis from a very historical perspective. So for those of you that are like, this isn't real, it's too much. If you go back and look at these books that are written between 1870 and about 1950, tons of male authors, very, very factual stuff about Atlantis. When you read female authors' writings on Atlantis, they're very esoteric, they're very magical, they're very intuitive. They're the ones that are going to expand into what actually was the culture, what was the feeling, what was the music. And so you get this really beautiful blend between them. So that was my base. Once I started teaching about Atlantis, and really once I started doing a lot of Atlantean type of healings, everybody's soul teaches me something. It teaches me something about who they are, where they've been, the kind of lives that they've had. And so I always say I'm a teacher, but I'm a student. I'm always absorbing. And so, for the last 6 years I've been teaching online, I couldn't guess how many classes I've taught.
It's a
Upward,
lot.
yeah, 300, more than 300. I journey in every single one of those classes. And so journeying and meditating through those, which is the primary way that I teach. I always give like a lecture in the beginning, but then we go into a guided journey. That's where my knowledge comes from. And that knowledge comes from my Holy Spirit. Is it going to resonate with everybody? No. Are some people going to hate and pester me about it? Yes. Do I care? No.
Mm-hmm.
Because if this is my soul's truth, and I feel like I have a very passionate and determined soul. It's not one that just likes to whittle around and wait. It likes a lot of action. If this is what my soul is telling me to do, and it's already shown me, you know, it led me to meeting my husband. It led me to understanding life beyond the veil. It led me to connect with my daughter that had passed. There's so many things that my soul had already shown me that
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to trust it. And so when it leads me to Atlantis, it becomes a key in my life I didn't know I was missing. And once you find that purpose, and maybe it's not right, it's not just one purpose. It can be this weaving of these multiples of things. But if I look in my other lifetimes, I have been punished plenty of times for teaching about Atlantis, plenty of times for sharing healing frequencies with others. And it never stops me. And it sure as heck is not going to stop me in this lifetime. So the clarity is really nice. Sometimes I think that I could be too much for people because I'm so authentic and so aligned with what I know to be true for myself that I don't hold back. So this, if you can see again, if this outfit that I'm wearing, I already wore it out because I was teaching this morning. I had a client and then I went for lunch with my kids. I don't change, right? That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to wear the same outfit. And the outfits can inspire or detract people. That's how it is, right? People either like your vibe and come closer and want to know more, or they back off of you because there's something not vibing with them. But being in your authentic self is so freeing that you just don't have to worry about the veils, right? And then your truth is so much easier to come out. So if a stranger asks me flat out, what do I do? I would say that I help them reconnect to the ancient part of themselves, and I teach about ancient civilizations. And if they want to know more, we'll go deeper. If a spiritual person comes to me and be like, "What's your realm? What do you got going on?" I'll be like, "Oh, I'm all Atlantis." Oh my God, me too. And the great thing about Atlantis is connected to everything in the all. So if you want to talk aliens, unicorns, healing, crystals, guess what? That's the Atlantean current.
Yeah. I will say that one of the things that drew me to you the most, and I could like cry, is the authenticity and the unapologetic expression that you are, because it's not easy to do in this society online to just be sharing and be as excited about what you're excited about and so unapologetically sharing that information. And I think when we choose to do that, regardless of what other people think, that's what shifts this frequency that we've been living in, right? Like we've been living in this world where we all feel masked, where we all don't feel safe to be in our greatest joy and our highest expression, no matter how weird or funky or whatever it could be.
Mhm.
We're all contributing to that when we're not sharing that part of ourselves. So I just want to honor you for that. And it's so cool to hear. Um, and there were so many other beautiful things that you shared. I'm trying to remember what I wanted to dive into next. I think with the whole journey, I personally just came back from my first real pilgrimage to southern France and England, Glastonbury area. And I've also been called to so many different sacred sites. Random trip I manifested with my mom to Greece several years ago, and just always feeling so like my soul was craving to know that ancient part of me. And remembering that my mom would say that when I was little, I would go up to any adult and just tell them all of the information I knew about ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And I don't know if that was
Wow.
what I had learned in school, but I was obsessed with learning it in school, Egypt too. And so
Mm,
now it's all starting to make sense.
yes.
Um, and how much, like, as I've dove into this world of my soul, and I guess what the one thing I did wanted to add was I don't know if this would be considered a more feminine aspect or just a more general, but what it feels like to me is we all hold all of this information of the whole universe in
Right.
every cell of our being. So when we spend that time sitting quiet, connecting to our own presence, like all of this stuff starts to open up. And things we could have never imagined be possible, like fairies or unicorns or dragons, who knows? Maybe they will become more real than we ever were taught. Um, so for someone who is wanting to explore a little bit more of these frequencies within them. I guess something that I'd be curious your perspective on is, your name here is the Atlantean Priestess, and I've been diving into that work myself and feeling so called and resonant with that word, but not at the same time truly knowing the totality of what that means.
Mm.
So, what does being a priestess mean to you? And if someone else feels called to exploring that part of themselves more, what would you suggest for them?
There is like so many kinds of priestesses, but if we could define what is a priestess is devotion. It's a devotion to self, to ritual, to a concept, to a temple, to a theory. It's a devotion, an undying devotion. Now, let's say for those listeners that maybe are more Lemurian, and we didn't talk about it a lot, but Lemurian is a very heart-centered, earth-connected type of energy. A Lemurian priestess is going to be one that's drawn to caring for the oceans, for the trees, for ensuring that people have the right kind of food, access to clean, clean water, good nutritious food, ones that love to sing with the earth. There is this part of us, whatever you crave, and I said like the youngest part of you, whatever you loved as a child. So you saying, you talked to everyone about Greece and Rome, that's that Atlantean coming out. We didn't have the language. It wasn't cracked open in society for everyone to talk about it. But that's what your soul was saying, right? I am basically, to me, you're saying, I am a teacher of Atlantis, and I'm here to remind everyone of what was. So the priestess life, you can be a priestess of the elements, right? You could be a priestess of fire, you could be a priestess of Isis, a priestess of Mother Mary, you could be a priestess to the temple of sound. There's a lot of different things, but it's like whatever drives your soul, what you would never want to live without once you have rediscovered it, that is your devotion, right? You could be a priestess devoted to a goddess who embodies freedom, right? And so your call, your priestess way, it doesn't have to be about wearing jewels and wearing robes and going to ceremony. Your priestess life could be being that voice for those who don't speak, right? Who can't speak. It's really like the divine feminine in action in a masculine initiated way. Okay, so you're going to do all this creation, this inner work, but you're not going to get stuck in it because you're a balanced being, because you have been through 1,000 initiations and 1,000 fires, and you have trained every lifetime to be here now. You're going to
Mhm.
stop at nothing to bring it forward. So this is what I say about myself is that there is nobody, including my wonderful husband, if one day he said, I need you to stop talking about Atlantis or teaching about it, it's not working for me.
Mhm.
Well, I guess this is no longer working for me because when there's something in your soul that speaks to you constantly, you have to follow it. What I would love to bring up is the trips that you're doing. I think of them as like soul markers. So I've transitioned from thinking about past lives into thinking more about parallel lifetimes. Okay. So if we think about, you can think about a string theory of, multiple universes. You can think of however way it works in your psyche right now. But everything is happening concurrently. So we are in this lifetime right now in 2026. We're also in Earth 5,000 years from now, and we're also in Earth 40,000 years from now, and we're somewhere on a different realm. Like we're these multidimensional beings. So once you start to understand that there's this lineage that lives within you, you can be able to pick out those archetypes. But when it comes to traveling, I believe that the soul leaves markers. Okay, so if you've had significant lifetimes, lessons, or knowledge, you will implant them in the land, in the rocks, in the crystals, in the trees. And when your soul is drawn back to that place and you have just this feeling of like warmth or connection, or like you could live in that one moment forever, that is your soul recognizing the piece it has left before. And so I think of them as like these little flags. And as you walk the land, they once again shoot into the soles of your feet, which then work their way up your chakra system, your body, and boom, back into your soul or your throat chakra or your third eye. And that's what sacred travel is. It's becoming a big market, and we can leave that aside. But if you're just true to your soul and maybe you're drawn to the island of Crete, you don't know why. There's nothing significant that you've heard that you have to go there, but there's something for you there. And that's what my soul does very, very often. It's like, you need to be in Istanbul in November. Oh my gosh, well, let me see if I can make that happen. I can't always make it happen, but when I can, um, they're really extraordinary experiences. So, a key takeaway from this section would be that you're not only not alone, your soul has planned for you to be here all along. And so, the people that you meet, the trips you go on, the books that you read, the conversations that you overhear, those are all designed for you to help you on your path. It's only if you tune them out that you will find yourself lost. And, going back to my aha moment, it doesn't mean it has to come like that for everyone. You just have to take the next step. And that next step could give you another piece of knowledge. It might connect you with a new person who
Mhm.
reflects something for you. And then you just keep going forward. And we can't rush to the end. We would miss the journey. The journey is exactly how you've set out. I'd say a common question I have with my clients or people that I'm reading for is, well, what if I miss my purpose? I don't think I'm on the right path.
Mhm.
I don't believe anyone can be off of their path. Your path
Yes.
is the steps that you're creating right now. Could you be off of your purpose? Maybe, right? But then again, check in with that little version of you. What did you love when you were
Mhm.
young? I loved Egypt, Greece, animals, and healing. I didn't I didn't know that I loved it the way that this woman presented to me, but yes, I just wanted to heal all animals. I wanted the world to stop hurting animals and just let me be with them, let me pet them, let me sleep with them, let me cuddle them. That's what I loved. And so therefore I really actually really loved Mother Gaia as well.
Mhm.
That's the exact same stuff that I love now. It's just
Yeah.
the more mature, accessible version of it. So there's, if you're like, when we kind of briefly talked about fairies and unicorns, and I get it, I was the biggest skeptic. I was probably a jerk when I was a kid because I would laugh. I don't know if I would laugh out loud, but I definitely laughed to myself when somebody would do like a school book order and they would order like unicorn posters and a unicorn book and a bookmark. And I'd be like, get a load of these people, right? But like at the same time, I believe in aliens. I'm waiting for an alien abduction to come get me. So two weird types of things. But what I
Mhm.
discovered is that they knew it all along. So for those of you looking, they don't exist on a third density. We right now are at a third density. Those of us working on our spiritual path are opening and awakening to a fourth or a fifth density. That's where the magic is. They can't live in our density. It's too heavy. It's too violent. It's too polarized, right? How is a unit like if a unicorn really has the medicine and the healing power it is, do you think they're going to let us have access to it? No, man, they're going to murder them and they're going to keep those horns or that magic for themselves so they can sustain their long lives. So it makes sense the way things are presented. And once you start awakening in that way, you find so much more. Like, I no longer believe in spaceships. I believe in portals and I believe in realms. And my own soul has shown me through the help of Atlas, and Atlas is the father of Atlantis. I asked him if you think of Atlas as the map and the navigation, right? Atlas, enough of this flat Earth, round Earth. I don't know what's going on. Show me what is true and real. What he showed me is what is true and real is that Earth is just one island nation, one island continent, surrounded by an ice wall, a fence. The ice
Mhm.
wall represents our consciousness. When our consciousness is low, as it has been for the last 12,000 years, everything freezes on Earth and the ice wall comes up because there needs to be a barrier between us and our neighbors, right? Just like if Canada was really violent, the USA is not going to let us have open borders with them. They're going to build a wall between Canada and the US, right? When our
Mhm.
consciousness rises, the ice wall is going to melt. So, yes, there's going to be climate change because everything is changing. Now, once the ice wall has melted, or there's at least a passage in the ice wall we can see, now we understand that perhaps the land of Jupiter or the land of Arcturus or the land of Hercules, they're just separate realms and we don't need spaceships to get to them. We can use airships, we can use water ships, we can use portals, gateways, stargates. It's a very fascinating thing to come into, but that's the exciting part about being on your spiritual journey. Everything that you can have ever imagined exists somewhere in some density, in some timeline. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to think about it. And so, if you start to wrap your head around that, if everything is possible, then what am I doing boxing myself into these limitations? And why has the school system, work, the
Mhm.
hospital system, why have they tried to corral us so hard? Because we are so powerful. We are so
Yeah.
powerful. And once we remember these things about ourselves, our whole world is going to change, which it is.
Totally. Yeah, I love this conversation. I'm gonna try to recall all of the things I wanted to touch on. Of I like talking about how everything that we see in our reality that we've created here has started in somebody's mind.
Right.
So who's to say anything else that comes up in our mind is not possible, right? And this experience of the different realms, which I've been also exploring in my own way. I love the way that you portrayed it. And as you start to feel that Earth, or the way that we're typically in the day to day experiencing Earth, is just one perspective of what's going on, and how for me it kind of feels like the realms are overlaid in a sense,
Mhm.
and it's just about what you are tuned into through your own energy and your perspective that allows that creates what channel you're tuning into, right? So for me, I've been tuning into the realms of the Fae and the galactic realms and the angel realms, and just starting to actually feel like, oh, what I've been living in most of my life is not all there is. In fact, it's a very, very, very small, maybe we could say, if that 0.0001% of reality is this, physical
Mhm.
realm. There's so much else that we get to explore, and I think it is important that we let people know that you get to choose what to explore, and it's important that you are consciously aware and choosing and learning from teachers who resonate with you, because um, maybe not all realms are super positive. I don't fully know, but it is so exciting, especially to that little girl. Like for me, I would be playing in the fields with my friends and imagining the fairies or the witches or
Mhm.
whatever. And it's just like, wow, what if we get to um, keep that quality while living also, as you said, from that adult, wiser mind that knows that we're here to serve each other and to be in connection and to support the earth and humanity. So, a couple more things that came up that I wanted to offer the listener is the book Journey of Souls by Michael Newton really supported me in opening my mind to um, what else is here than what we've been taught or what we've maybe been trained to see. So, if you guys want to check out that book, it really changed my life in 2020. And then the last piece that you mentioned that I was just like, wow, this is so fascinating. I've been exploring my own Lemurian roots because I actually was born and raised in Hawaii,
Mhm.
and my mom is from Vietnam, but she and a couple of her sisters were like drawn to Hawaii. She is a water baby. She calls herself a fish, a mermaid. Like she can swim for hours. She surfs, like all that stuff. And she is the one that will, like, she reached out to me. I was trying to, like, I had this idea come into my mind of like, I would like to go to Greece now. It was a little bit after COVID.
Mhm.
And she just reaches out to me and she's like, you want to go to Greece? And she planned all of these sites, Crete, um, Santorini, like all of these things that I wouldn't have known of. And
Mhm.
it's just so clear that me and her have this incredible connection that she's not super aware of yet.
Right. Right.
But she loved reading me this one like pop-up Greek mythology book when I was young, and it's just cool to feel those deeper levels of soul connection and soul excitement that run through us. So I appreciated you bringing that through.
Thank you. I wanted to shout out my parents too when we were talking about authenticity.
Mm,
My father's a cowboy and he always wears a cowboy hat, a snap button shirt, a big buckle, Wranglers, and cowboy boots. And he's traveled. My parents have traveled the world many times over, so that's what he wears all the time.
wow.
And my mom is she's a very good blend of Lemurian and Atlantean. She's very vibrant. She's very like colorful. She's very Leo in that she says what's on her mind. She doesn't give a crap what anyone says against it. So they're like, we've picked, we've picked our family, our teachers, and our parents for reasons. And as I kept going on my path, even though they were very stuck in their Catholic ways, and they've opened a lot throughout my path, but that's still the base of their belief and foundation. They've shown me so much that I was thinking was like new. But I'm like, oh, actually, this is how my parents raised me. So I know not everybody has, an ideal parent situation, but you did ask for the parents that you have to teach you certain lessons. I think mine were basically to teach me that we're going to go our own way. Nobody in my family works 9 to 5. Nobody ever has. Everybody's an entrepreneur, which means you live and die in those cycles, though, too, right? It's not total freedom. Sometimes a salary might be nice, but um,
Mhm.
they've always shown me that. Another thing I want to say is that when we're looking for these pieces of knowledge, when you go to these parts of the old world, and old world could be maybe you're drawn to the pyramids in Mexico, maybe there's parts of Europe that you really love, or different parts of Greece or different parts of Asia. Look at what kind of icons are there. What kind of idols do they have? And don't just dismiss it as, oh, these people believe in that. If you go to like Ireland, Scotland, England, there's a very healthy fairy culture there. That stuff
Mhm.
that doesn't come out of nowhere, especially when there's these places that we perceive to be more old and ancient. They have kept some kind of remnant through it. So, what I particularly love about when I was in London and Paris last summer, there's so many statues on angels, lions, unicorns, dragons, right? Or like shields. Like, do you think we just put them there for no reason? Like, the reason might be lost to us now, 300, 500, 800 years later, but it was
Mhm.
built with intention. So if it feels too fluffy for you, trust in the old world. Trust in what was created in the old world, because that is actually more real to what was than where we are currently. The other thing I would say is that when you're on this journey of the soul, journey of self, the more connection you can make to your ancient self, to your Holy Spirit, which is what you have mentioned too, we have access to everything because we're connected to the one and all creator. Everybody knows everything. You just
Mhm.
don't believe it and you don't know how to access it. But when you get to a point that you can really, really trust your higher self, your Holy Spirit, your soul, however you want to frame it, that's the one that wants to lead you when you're in tough situations.
Mhm.
I went through something very challenging 2 years. It would have finished sometime last year, but it was a very, very, very challenging part in my human journey. And the human part of me wanted to kick it to the curb, wanted to run away, wanted to make really drastic action. And I'm so happy I had my practice because I would sit with myself in the bath, and I have a really beautiful mirror. I basically have a little Atlantean temple in my bath downstairs.
Mhm.
And I would sit with my ancient self and I'd be like, what are you trying to teach me? Because this hurts so bad. It's so
Mhm.
uncomfortable. I can't do this. I can't do this. And it literally gave me a time frame, which was exactly what I experienced. It showed me the lessons I needed to learn. It was basically about unconditional love. The lesson
Mhm.
part of it was that it's easy to love another when everything is good.
Yep.
Can you love someone during their toughest, lowest, deepest, darkest nights of the soul? Can you love them then if you receive nothing back? Can you hold love in such a vibration that you can hold the love for the entire, your entire unit, your family, your friends, whoever else, the students that I teach? So getting to trust that part of you will guide you, and you'll feel more than the human journey. If I didn't have that connection to my ancient self, I think I would have made some mistakes or decisions that I would regret. So getting to know yourself, it can't be rushed. It does happen in stillness. Sometimes it happens in retreats, in circles, sometimes in a cave, sometimes you're at a temple, sometimes you're just in the forest. But never dismiss that nudging. And for me, I know it's my soul, and I'm very used to myself by now, so I don't have to use these markers. But in the beginning, I did. My soul speaks to me basically somewhere from my solar plexus and up. If I ask my soul a question, if I ask Priscilla a question, when it's a yes, it comes from my heart and it comes up. So that information, you should study Atlantis. You've
Mhm.
always been a priestess. That
Mhm.
comes from my soul. When it's an answer from my ego, from the fear, right, from the programming, it comes from the back of my head and it inserts itself
Mm,
onto my thoughts. And that's when I know that that's actually not the correct answer. That's how it works for me, but you want to find something like that for you where you can really start to separate who is me as a soulless wise being and who is me as this human that's afraid of that next step. So those are things that we want to keep in keep in mind, because as magical as a spiritual journey is, it's still very complicated. There's loopholes. There's different kind of ways that will distract you and pull you and actually bring you back into division. And
mhm,
you do need to learn to protect yourself. Not everybody out there is love and light. Not
mhm,
all realms, should you go stomping and astral traveling in, you're not going to be invited. It's not going to be a good situation for you. And
mhm,
a big thing would be that you have authority over self. Never give your authority up to another being, no matter what they say,
mhm,
because it's between you and God. That's it. And if they can't respect that relationship, then that is not your guide. That is not who you should be traveling with. So, not to frighten anyone, just to make sure that we understand. It's just like women on this planet. We're not going to go for a walk in our city at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. We're just not. That's not a
mhm,
good idea. It doesn't matter if you're home, doesn't matter if you're in Europe, in Australia, you just, for the most part, you're not going to do that because there's something that invites in danger, right?
mhm,
It's the same thing with your spiritual path. If an energy meets you and you don't feel comfortable with it, don't invite it in, period.
mhm,
Right? Even if it's someone great, maybe it's Ganesh. Maybe Ganesh is like, hey, I'm here to help remove obstacles for you. And I'm like, but I don't know you. I don't know
yeah,
if I trust you. The answer is no right now.
mhm,
Okay. Then they should just be able to leave. And then maybe 3 months from now, 4 months from now, maybe you've taken a course, you've read a book, and now you feel ready. And Ganesh approaches you again. And this time you're like, okay, I'm in the space to learn and grow with you. But you have to use discernment on the human path and the spiritual path, because you do want to keep yourself safe and you want to keep yourself in an expanded way without any kind of harm.
totally. Yeah, thank you for speaking to the beautiful wavy journey of the spiritual path. I know many people listening can appreciate the reality of like it's not always going to be easy, it nor should it be, or else we wouldn't be growing anymore.
Right.
And I think something that I always come back to for myself and have been not pioneering, but standing for more for my clients is whenever we are hiring teachers, mentors, both in the physical world or we're working with mentors or guides in the spiritual world, are they helping you feel more empowered to know what's best for you and make your own decisions? Not telling you the right way, not telling you this is what's best for you, but always helping you gain that skill and knowledge within yourself. Because as much as this is our connection between self and God, we're also like, we are that, right? So, really being able to come back to nobody has the answers but you. And I think this whole journey is about reclaiming that power and that knowing of our own divinity. So, one more thing in case, like, if any of this has felt a little over your head or anything like that, just imagine like 1 year from now who you desire to be.
Right.
And we could call that your next iteration or your higher self. How would that person respond or act or show up, or what action would they take in this moment? When you keep asking that question and you actually hopefully have the courage to take that action, you will always be guided to more magic and more love and more connection than you might be able to see right now from that self. I loved that visual that you had. For me, it's a similar like expanding in the heart and up. And then the other energy is kind of like a contracting. When it's
Right.
in no, it's a contracting and going down. So that lifting, more exciting. It's like, oh, this possibility, this experience, this opportunity, when I imagine it, my energy rises, right? My vibration rises rather than contracts and makes me smaller. That's how it feels for me. But I've never like I'll explore that one because I probably have that one as well around the head.
It's very obvious to me now, but like in the beginning when I was really questioning, I said maybe like once or twice a year I'll question like, am I crazy? I'm just making all this up. Am I like in some deep fantasy world? And then I'll pose that question. I'll say, even if I am, still helping people.
Totally.
And so, reality is also a perception. Um, so it's like you said, it's what we're talking about. It's the journey of self. You're gonna have to go through a healing journey usually to start. You're gonna have to learn to love yourself truly. You're gonna have to forgive yourself for a lot of perceived mistakes. You're gonna have to forgive a lot of others that you think maybe did wrong to you.
Mhm.
Um, and once you kind of get into that more open-hearted space, that's when the possibilities really start rolling up. And I would agree about the teachers. I think what we've been seeing the last year or two in particular is the fall of the guru.
Mhm.
And anyone that leads you away from self and in particular is very strict, it's my way or nothing. That's not how it should go. I teach cosmic conscious Reiki, which is its own birthing process through me. And I think what my students love the most is like, Priscilla, you're always so open, but you always make everything so malleable because
Mhm.
it should be. This, I always preface by saying, this is my truth. This is what's been shown to me. Not every student I have is going to agree with me, but every student I have are going to be able to have that open relationship. And I say, I'm just as much as the student as I am the teacher. Yes, I hold the space. Yes, I created the container. But if at any point we find ourselves going into the negative Atlantean, which is I'm better than everybody, I know this, I can do that, and I do get it's hilarious to me, but I do get a lot of people in my inbox claiming to be something.
Mhm.
Like once in a while, it's like, oh, you only work in fifth density. I work in the 12th density. Cool, man. Cool. Like, I
Totally.
don't care, like it's just interesting the way that people's egos come into yours. And I'm like, but I can understand where you are in your path. That is your truth. You believe you are Isis. I'm Isis. You should be teaching about me. You should be asking me to teach you to teach others.
Mhm.
No, man, I'm cool. But but everyone is there. So again, it's a path of empowerment, and you can't allow anyone to steal that away from you, to try to guide it away from you, because everything that you take going forward on your spiritual path should lead you back to self, should you lead you back to source. Um,
Mhm.
there's a big movement right now of people crapping on Archangel Metatron and Archangel Michael, and I just can't get behind it. And sometimes I get hate on my feed, and I'm just like, you do you. I'm very cool in the angelic realm, and I have full faith that we're seeing, beautiful things. But if you can find, how it is, especially on Instagram, you can find anything you want to prove anything you want. You can find a group of people that will support you 100%. But if it doesn't resonate with you, if it's not your truth, then stay in your own lane. It can be a really beautiful experience.
Totally. I really love what you shared because can relate, and I'm sure so many people can around like I've been on this channeling journey, really strengthening my channeling abilities over the last year. And I have some pretty remarkable like moments of proof for myself or evidence that I didn't know anything about that, learned about it through channeling, and then I look it up and that's a thing that people talk about. I couldn't have made that up.
Mhm.
However, there will be, especially when we get more and more magical, I guess you could say, questioning of whether we're making it up. And I love the perspective that even if we are, we are the creators of our world. We're the ones living in our world. So why not, if it's not harming anybody and it's giving more love and more joy to the world, why not? There are people who are doing that with not so negative energy, and that's their soul's choice and their stuff, but we're all living our own lives, so we get to choose what is most exciting and
Yeah.
know that everyone had like you're gonna have your soul tribe of people that you're meant to help. I'm gonna have mine, however that looks, wherever we're going with this thing. And I think that's so empowering to take the need to prove anything
Mhm.
is fully real off of ourselves and just to have what we're choosing or what feels true for us to be enough. And I think that's
Mm.
so freeing.
That's such a beautiful takeaway message, and it's going to come back for who's ever listening again and again and again. Um, be true to yourself, have fun, decide the world you want to live in. You want to live in the world of fear and constriction and debt and taxes and forever. That's the choice, right? I say like my world's pretty fun. Like between my clients and my students and my teachings, I could talk about ancient civilizations and aliens and chords. Like it's a pretty good world. I have no complaints. And then, through your life, you get to experience things with a different lens, and it makes life more joyous. And honestly, it makes raising children more fun because once you decide that, we it's a different discussion, but I'm a lot away from the mainstream in a lot of ways, and I don't miss any events. Sometimes I tune in, I'm like, what? What's happening on Earth right now? I'm like, oh my God, are people believing this?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's the channel they're tuned into. That's the channel they're watching, right? So that's their reality. But if you don't like your life, change the channel and
Mm,
watch what happens. It's so much magic. So much
yeah.
magic awaits you, and it all lives within your being already.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for everything you shared. Is there any way that people can find you, anything that you can share with the audience?
Thank you. I'm most active on Instagram at the Temples of Atlantis. My website is templesofatlantis.ca. And above all, I really love teaching. I really do. So I have different core programs. The easiest way to work with me maybe be the Galactic Temples of Light membership.
Mhm.
It's a live monthly transmission. It has a library now of over 120 classes from everything from Atlantis and Lemuria to Arcturus and the Pleiades and the Seven Sisters to the Temples of Time and Atlantean festivals. There's a lot of good juice in there. Right now, I'm enrolling for Cosmic Conscious Reiki for the foundational temple, and what that means is the foundation of knowing your ancient self, of reawakening to the gifts that you've already possessed, and using different currents to help bring them forward. So it's not your typical Reiki course. It's a temple of Arcturus, the Temple of the Rose, and the Temple of Sirius. That's our base, and then from there there's 12 temples. Someone asked me the other day, is it 12 temples for 12 months? I'm like, heck no, man. It's probably 12 temples for like 6, 8, 10 years. It's a mystery school. I have rebuilt a mystery school and it keeps building. And then aside from that, I also have the Atlantean Priestess Collective, which is not enrolling right now. But the Atlantean Priestess Collective is a collection of women and sisters from around the world that I have connected with that serve as my guest teachers. Every month, we work through a 12 chakra system. So we work with one chakra at a time with one Atlantean colony at the time. Today, I taught about the heart chakra in Greece, where
Mhm.
Aphrodite, Demeter, and Vestia were our guides, as well as Sister Electra. So it's every intake is a little bit different. Last year, what we found the overall theme was about embodiment.
Mm.
This year, I can see so far with the theme we're halfway through. I'd say it's about self-discovery. That's what it seems like to be. So I keep weaving. I will say this to everyone as well. You don't even know what you're building yet. It might feel smaller one course, but 10 years from now, you're going to see how those courses all connected.
Mm.
Nothing is ever wasted. The temples of Atlantis, I don't even know where it'll be in 10 years. I don't even know the knowledge I'll have, or hopefully the books I will have written and the people I will have reached. But what
Mm.
I know is it's a temple of love. It's a temple of love and knowledge and truth. And if you're seeking the truth of yourself and something about my frequency speaks to you, then I invite you to enter this mystery school, to find out a lot about yourself, and to trust the journey because um, it's never boring and it's always revealing. I've never had a student be like, I didn't get anything out of your class today, Priscilla. Most of them are like, and they're like, I need days to be able to ingest this. I'm like, perfect. Our next class is not for a month. You get to
Yeah.
sit with it will come back again. But I hope that you check it out. I feel like I feel like I'm really close to something bursting wide open. And
Mm,
um, it's really exciting because, again, you have a feeling, but you don't know what it could be. And
totally.
I have a lot of collaborations coming in right now. I'm getting back on my retreat path. So who knows? But, I'm very approachable. I love talking. I love sharing. So if I feel like an aligned teacher, then you're welcome to be in my space. Women and men, not never just for women. The Atlantean Priestess Collective, okay, purely for women. Outside of that, men are always welcome.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I love that you also mentioned the what I've been feeling myself as like a brewing of whatever's next that we don't really know what it's going to look like, but I will say that everything that you have already put out there looks just so amazing and has been so intriguing and exciting. And the way that you share on Instagram, like even if you don't um, join one of her programs, go soak up her Instagram content because it's just so you can feel there's a transmission that's so much deeper than just the information that's being shared, which is a testament to your
Awesome. Thank you.
embodiment.
I'm glad it comes across that way. That's a perfect thing to hear. Thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome, love. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Please let us know in the comments what you're most excited about in this moment, what you took away from this. If you're remembering anything about Atlantis, any of your weird synchronicities from your life that might be arising right now. And otherwise, please like and subscribe to the channel or the podcast for more interviews like this. I feel we're going in a very exciting direction, and I can't wait to continue bringing beautiful guests like Priscilla here for you all.
Thank you.
Sending you guys
Blessings.
so much love. Bye bye.